That quote from Isaiah. How many times have you been told that Isaiah prophesied the virgin birth centuries before the nativity of Jesus? How many Christians, with that familiar smug gotcha glint in their eye, have quoted that verse as though it actually meant something? Unfortunately for them, they only know the verse and not the chapter. Isaiah 7, verse 14. A virgin shall conceive and bear a son, and shall call his name Immanuel. Let's explore those words a little, shall we? Immanuel means God with us. It doesn't mean Messiah, Christ, or Anointed One, all of which are also titles given to mortals, by the way. Immanuel certainly doesn't mean Jesus, Yeshua, or even Yeshua bar Joseph. Now, let's look at the Hebrew word Almah, which means young woman. Greek translations of the Old Testament, the version that the Greek-speaking writer of Matthew's Gospel would have referred to, used the word Parthenos, which is a little more ambiguous. It still means young woman, but it can also mean virgin. So by the time it hits the Greek-speaking Christians of the New Testament, Isaiah 7:14, a young woman shall conceive and bear a son, became a virgin shall conceive and bear a son. But how do we know this? Okay, well, we know the New Testament gospel writers spoke and wrote in Greek. We know from other gospel issues that they didn't really know the geography or culture of the Holy Land very well, and so it's likely that they're Gentiles, part of the disparate Christian communities Paul and his mates were founding around the Mediterranean. Remember that the earliest gospel, Mark, was written at least 20 years and more likely 30 years after the alleged crucifixion. So this anonymous Greek-speaking author of Matthew misunderstood a Hebrew word and presumably was quite surprised to learn that the Jews, who understood the original, didn't agree. When we read Isaiah 7, when we read around the verse, and not just verse 14 alone, we learn about a very different story. Around 700 years before the apparent birth of Jesus, Jerusalem is under siege. Ahaz, the king, summons his prophet Isaiah to seek advice. Isaiah tells him to do nothing. Don't engage the two armies at the gates. Be a little patient, because the Lord God gives you a sign. A young woman will conceive and will bear a son, and will call him Immanuel. By the time the child learns to reject the bad and choose the good, all will be well, and the besieging armies will have departed. This is 700-year-old advice to a king about a current military siege. It has nothing to do with another bloke with a different name being born 700 years later. But don't take my word for it. Read Isaiah chapter 7 for yourself, all of it.